Hi, everyone. I thought I'd jump in and just share a little bit of what's going on today uh, and this week because it's an intense week. This is now the new moon in Leo. I've tried 5 days in a row to find the time to make a video about this. But things are not going according to plan, and maybe for you as well, you might find the same thing. So I'm just going to start with the new moon, which is today, this evening in Europe time. I think it's 7:55 in the evening. And then we're going to go from the new moon into the weekend where things are really starting to spice up. You will already be feeling this wherever you are, in whatever area of your life it's happening. But I thought we'd just check in and see how everybody's doing. And I'm going to go sign by sign, particularly for the ascendant, and it works very well for the sun. Maybe less obvious for the moon, but you can use your moon sign. And that shows you much more about where you are emotionally, maybe psychologically. Interior experience is more obvious in the moon. So let me just share what we're talking about. We'll start with the Leo new moon. I'll just take me out of here because we don't need that, and it gets in the way. Voila. Right. So here we are. So with the Leo new moon this evening, yeah. So it's about 5 to 8 this evening, Brussels time. Ignore the location because I've only done that since I happen to live here. It defaults automatically. If you're in some other part of the world, it will be a different ascendant. And so we don't care about the housing placement. We're looking at the aspects of the moon. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I see this as a kind of a trigger point for a number of other things that are actually much more significant. We see the moon when the sun and the moon conjunct becomes a new moon. So it's a new lunar cycle. It's going to generate another sort of 28, 29-day cycle that leads to a full moon in about 14 days, which will be the 11th of August, until the next new moon, which will be about the 27th of August. And that one will be in Virgo. So for this month, the energy is very much to do with what we see sort of imprinted in this new moon chart. It's kind of like a natal chart for the lunar cycle. And what we see here is that there's a strong fire element. Fire and earth are the two aspects that are the most predominant right now. And you'll see why this starts to become more significant when I talk about going through the weekend and after into next week. So fire and earth, you can think of as something that is igniting and stimulating something that actually is very slow moving. So the earth is always quite steady. So my dog, as usual, wakes up and does her stuff whenever I get talking to the computer. So if you hear strange noises, I promise it's not me, it's my dog. So yeah, fire is about passion and about something new. It's inspirational, triggering something that is dynamic. And the earth, of course, is much slower to change. And so there is this tension that comes between them. And in that tension, we see this squaring aspect, for example, between Leo and Taurus, which is boding sort of well for the tension that we get coming up in the next week. But we're already there. It's not like this is news to you. Certainly for the last 10 days, you will have already been feeling this kind of sense of buildup. And the buildup is actually, it's a strange sense of buildup because it's an instability. It's a particular sense of things not being reliable, things not being easy to determine or to discern in your life in particular, where Taurus is in your chart. We'll talk about that shortly. But this is something that has been brewing for many years, and we'll look at that again in terms of person to person, how your ascendant and sun are being affected. So I just wanted to jump in with this new moon. It is setting us up for this new cycle, but of course we get a new moon every month. It's not something particularly extraordinary. In this particular case, the lunation is showing another feature, which is important because it's close enough to the moon. It's not conjunct, but it's in the same sign. And the other feature is with regards to Mercury, which is squaring Uranus today. So when we see an aspect that's quite strong, in this case, Mercury squaring Uranus, then we see that there's another element to this lunation, even if it's not exactly affecting the lunation. It's happening simultaneously, and that catches our attention. That's something we want to pay attention to. Mercury is also squaring the North Node, what I'm sometimes going to refer to as Rahu. That's the Indian traditional way of calling the North Node. The North Node is where everything expands, and the North Node has this energy of sudden, impactful change. We see already at the time of this new moon, although it's not exact, that Uranus and the North Node are conjunct. And it's like a duplication of that energy of sudden change, sudden new things on the horizon, new inspiration. And now with Mercury squaring that, we can think of that as excessive mental stimulation, that this triggers insight as well. It can be impatience. It's triggering a feeling of scatteredness or a sense of not being able to put your thoughts together. This may have been why it took me 5 days to do this. Also, my days just keep getting filled up with all kinds of things where at least normally I have a bit of space in each day where there's more time where I can sit down and actually do the behind the scenes kinds of things like this sort of preparation for a video. And my days just continually got filled up with all kinds of random, unexpected things that, of course, can happen anytime. But I just get this feeling that it's particularly destabilizing these days, this week for me at least. There can also be super positive aspects to this. So squares are often challenging. They're something that we have to grapple with. So it's like fitting in all this stuff that's adding to our schedule or changing our day in some way, but it's also very insightful, and it can lead you to have real insights, flashes of insight, some really interesting things coming up, revelations of things that you might have not realized before, or you may not have really taken to heart before, and now you're really understanding something. So that's really interesting. So this is not all necessarily bad stuff. It can be very helpful, really supportive energy. In fact, for individuals, it can be super energy. It's collectively where we start to see more problematic energy. But of course, since we're living in this collective world, we will obviously have to respond to that. So it may be that even if our collective experience is more challenging and our personal lives are relatively at peace or settled where we kind of want them, we might find ourselves in the weeks ahead having to respond to events that we hadn't predicted or hadn't been able to really grapple with. The other fire element that's really important here is Jupiter in Aries. We're seeing it here still in direct motion at the time of the new moon. Later on today, meaning just a couple of hours after the new moon, Jupiter is actually going to station retrograde. So this has already been kind of a feeling of traction for already a few weeks now, because Jupiter has been at the same degree point for about 3 weeks already, since early July. And Jupiter will stay on this roughly the same degree point with a very minor change over the next 3 weeks. So we're going to look at this, the impact of Jupiter. We always want to give an orb that's not too big when something like this is happening, because then it can start to mean anything and nothing. But we give an orb of about 2 degrees. You could extend that, meaning the range of what it affects over 2 to 3 degrees. We could extend that to 3, for example, if it's your sun or moon or ascendant, or in my case, for example, the midheaven. My midheaven is at 9 degrees. And Jupiter has been on my midheaven for all this time. It's pushing me, in my case, for example, to be focusing a lot on career and how I present myself, how I do my work, and what needs to change. Aries is all about pioneering energy. It's about something that's new and significant, and it's very personal. It's about our personal desires as well. When Jupiter is there, it's about real reflection on, how it is that I can engage. Jupiter is very much about wisdom, insights in terms of the knowledge that we have, how to use that, how to actually generate income from that. Jupiter is also about abundance. And Jupiter is about good stewardship of life in general. And so when it's in Aries, we have to look at what we need individually, what it is that we're trying to accomplish in our lives. So this may be affecting you in a very personal way, even if the degrees are a couple of degrees off. I'm going to give this like I said, a tight orb of 2 degrees. So you can already see if you are, let's say, even 6, 7, 8, 9, and even 10 degrees of Aries, that's something that you want to pay attention to. And that will also affect you if you are in any of the cardinal signs, meaning those same degrees, for example, in Cancer or Capricorn or Libra. So you can have a look at your own chart and see if you can find those degrees, because that will be squaring you and causing a certain amount of tension that requires you to respond and change. What is it that needs to be changed in these areas of your life? And so you can see this extra fire element that Aries is adding to this fire new moon in Leo. It is also trining, so that's still within the orb, because we're looking now at about a 3-degree orb, which is significant. Up to 3 degrees is helpful to look at for a lunation. Beyond that, we again want to take it as a kind of a reference point, but not necessarily something deeply impactful. But what we see here is that Jupiter is affecting this new moon in a very big way. So we see that also is an instigator. It's something that shows us something about, again, what do we need to do about this? But it's coming from a place of support, just in this way that that we can have a desire, a need, or a knowledge that we need to change something. There can be a supportive energy behind that. And so Jupiter is actually lending a lot of positivity to this energy of something new, something different coming in. And we do live in a time of a lot of concern and fear and tension in the world. And any support we can get is definitely welcome. So here we are, having this potentially lucky break with Jupiter, that will change when it slows down and retrogrades, in the sense that, not that Jupiter loses its luck when it's retrograde, it's just that things don't necessarily come towards us as smoothly. And anyway, with a trine, you have to make your own luck. Things can be presented to you, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to take advantage of them. You're not necessarily going to act upon it. So this is a time for taking action, given the instability of the energy that we're going to look at in the days ahead, and anyway, that exists already at this time. You might want to keep that, all options on the table kind of energy, in terms of planning whatever it is that you got underway. So keeping a sense that whatever is happening now is definitely not going to be permanent. And what's going to happen is you're going to be reviewing that, and the review will happen in about February. So that's interesting for 2 reasons. One is that the full moon of Leo will happen in February. That will actually be on the 5th of February. And then when Leo comes back to this point, which is closer to the latter part of February, towards the end of February, Jupiter rather, comes back to this point in Aries where we're talking about it today. And so you're going to get a lot of answers, but in the meantime, you will have done a lot of grappling, a lot of learning of what it is that needs to change, assessing your goals, your proper use of resources, especially resources like intellectual and knowledge-based resources, how to, again, sort of be a good steward to your accumulated wisdom. Wherever Aries is in your chart, it's going to be telling you where this is impacting you. And we'll see that briefly as we go through the cycles of the next few days, so you'll get an idea there. But I won't touch on that in this regard, because it's just going to be like way too long. There's just so much to say. There's a lot of things happening this week that I think are actually building up to Monday's very intense aspects. And so I prefer to focus on that, and we'll deal with the details through that. The other aspect of this retrograde is that, so 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees of Aries are very significant. Keep that in mind. But also 28, 29 degrees of Pisces are very significant, because although Jupiter has already moved across that, and you would have experienced that in late April, early May, Jupiter is now going to be going back over that point. It's going to re-enter Pisces at the end of October, from the 27th of October, and it's going to be pretty much on those 2 degrees for the month of November, and most of December. And so finally, Jupiter will re-enter Aries as it stations direct after the at the end of November. It stations direct. I think it's the 28th. And from that point, it's going to be turning around on the 28th degree of Pisces, slowly moving across the 29th degree, and only reaching the 1st degree of Aries as of the 20th of December. And so if you also have late Pisces placements in your chart, and that can also apply to other late degree placements in your chart, because by aspect that will be referring back to this Jupiter movement, that's going to be something quite significant for you as well. So look out for those placements, 28, 29 degrees of Pisces. Particularly in the autumn, you're going to experience that quite intensely, really for pretty much November and December. Right, I'm going to move away now from the moon, and we're going to go now towards the hang on, I just have to find it now. Now we're going to go towards the triple conjunction. And the triple conjunction, of course, is what I was referring to earlier. And that is where we're going to see this Mars and Uranus and North Node Rahu coming together in a very rare composition in Taurus. Again, for now, just ignore the ascendant. I will refer ascendant by ascendant, but I just want to touch on this for a moment. The day before, so on the 31st of August, we already have the conjunction of Uranus and the North Node. And as I mentioned before, this is already something you're feeling. It's not a surprise. This is something that I would honestly say that you will have already had an inkling of since May of 2018. Like, this is not something in your life that is all of a sudden like, oh, wow, it's coming up now. No, you've already had a lot of thinking about this since the spring of 2018. And it's been, for some of you, already quite intense, because perhaps Uranus has already crossed over some personal points that have stimulated this change. But it still doesn't matter, because it's going to be relative to that part of your life, which is wherever Taurus is found. Uranus going through Taurus is deeply destabilizing, because Taurus represents money and security and the earth itself and food and how we get our food and agriculture and all of those things that are foundations for life itself. Everything that supports life in every way is found in Taurus. It's the pleasures as well, the sensual pleasures and the things that we get out of the tactile and physical part of living. Taurus doesn't like to change. And the image of the bull is a really significant one for Taurus, because bulls, if they don't want to move, they're not going to move. And they also, if they want to move, they're going to move, and you had better clear out of the way. So when something has shifted in Taurus, you'll know it. And this is also why Uranus in Taurus is often a signature for big shifts in the tectonic plates. Things like volcanic action, big, very difficult earthquake energy. We saw in the last 2 days, actually just in the last 24 hours, major earthquake in Philippines and another one in Uruguay. So this action is intensified when then it is in this clash or conjunction, this energy of intensification with the North Node. And that has been, like I said, brewing already for many days. You should certainly consider that from about the 20th of July, this has pretty much been active. And now what happens on the 1st of August is that Mars comes in as a flashpoint. It's now triggering this energy. So the faster moving planets always wake up the energy of the slower moving planets, which are doing their work sometimes a little bit beneath the surface and sort of underneath our awareness, and perhaps behind the scenes in a more slow moving way. And then Mars, especially the planet of action, triggering potential needs to respond or react very quickly, will come in and change all of that. It's like lighting a match to tinder that was already ready for a fire. That's very apt in these days as well, because with all this fire energy, we are seeing a lot of fire in the world. That's again not something new. It's just that we see that there's certain flashpoints that literally ignite these energies and cause things to well up, cause things to intensify. This is what Mars is doing here. It's an extremely rare aspect. Mars will conjunct the North Node every couple of years, so that's not rare. Mars will conjunct Uranus every couple of years because of the cycle of Mars. Uranus will conjunct the North Node about every 15 or 16 years. Because they have two very different cycles. It's not like in the 18, 19-year cycle of the North Node, but it's a little different. And so the fact that those planets come together every now and then is kind of, okay, we get the change every now and then, like a nudge. But when the three of them come together, now we're seeing something very rare. And this coming together is happening at a very volatile time in our history. A time where we are stepping up as humanity to either make a radical change to how we're living in this world, or to really face the consequences of it. We're seeing the consequences already, but we are still at a certain point in a position where we can turn things around and modify those consequences. Nonetheless, this is a bit of a do or die moment. And this is not a one-off. It doesn't happen in this particular weekend. It's not happening just in these days around this time. This is an ignition point. It's a flash point that then changes things for a very long time. There's a lot of good that can come out of this meeting as well, even simply Uranus meeting, for example, the North Node separately, or Uranus meeting Mars. When those things happen, we get fantastic innovations. We get great scientific advances. We get things to change in a way that was unexpected, something that seemed to be a small thing or a minor thing, but that comes out of this flashpoint and changes society. So this will change society. It's not something that's only going to change your particular experience of life, but it will absolutely change how we live within society. So this is also a very, very interesting time, as the Chinese say, to be alive, and we have to adapt to that. Now we've got the grace around this time of Venus. Venus is not quite conjunct, but good enough. It's still a degree away at the actual triple conjunction meeting, but in the days afterwards, certainly, I think it's active already. Again, when it's in a degree or so of the event, so that means the 1st, 2nd of August, Venus is giving us a lot of support. It's giving us a capacity to harmonize what we're actually experiencing, and having a sense that something is actually, there might be a potential for a new connection, a new potential for something that can be collective or harmonious, or at least uniting you with another person or group of people in a constructive way around this. This can also be, of course, Venus representing money. It can also be something to do with money and how you might earn your money, especially certain signs are actually going to be very significantly placed in that regard because of the money aspect of this, depending on where it is in your chart. We'll have a look at that now. So I won't say too much more about that, except to say that, look out, it is going to be quite life-changing, something very significant. Some of you will notice this much more on an internal level, because it's actually changing the way that you see yourself, or that you see things happening within your orbit. and others it will be very much the world around you that is changing, that requires you to change as well. This Mercury energy that is already stimulated today, but I think continues over the next couple of days, is also part of this package, because whatever Mercury is challenging Uranus to reveal, and potentially through the news, for example, or potentially through something that is coming through a collective understanding of something, where Mercury is going to be challenging, that is also going to affect you personally. And you might come up with some just absolutely brilliant ideas or opportunities, again, that might bring you some really good fortune. So I don't want you to go away having a feeling that this is all going to be difficult. Some great things can come out of this. And of course, whatever great things emerge in life only come out of something that has to go away or disappear or destroy itself before something new can come. And so, again, keep that in mind, that it's all about change. None of it is permanent. We're cycling through things. And so we're really about, at this stage, really practicing what can change. I just want to briefly touch on the fact that Venus is in also an aspect all weekend long, and certainly in the early days of next week, to Chiron. And so there can be some sense of desire for healing, or awakening around healing, or awakening around where we might sabotage ourselves. Venus representing abundance, money as well, relationships, and Venus, very importantly, ruling this triple conjunction. This is also why when Venus is in this harmonious aspect, Venus is kind of wearing the pants in this show. And so she's actually kind of flavoring this whole thing. And that's why I was saying this energy of this triple conjunction will definitely affect aspects of money, finances, how we feed ourselves, how we take care of our environment, and perhaps even our belongings. So that can have you can have a new revelation, for example, around how you find certain things important in your life and that no longer really seem significant. You might have a way of looking at things that is fresh and very different, that you want to give up. When we see the North Node, we have to look at the South Node. And in this case, where Venus is trining the South Node in that harmonious aspect to the South Node, there can be a recognition, but a sense of letting go, which is symbolized by the South Node, by Ketu, which is about letting go of things that we used to value, letting go of old ways of seeing money, old ways of seeing our possessions, or even the way that we relate to each other, and recognizing that there's something that wasn't working, something that wasn't harmonious, potentially even sabotaging us, that Chiron is helping us understand. And so maybe you also know right away, already now, before this intensity arrives, that there's something that you need to give up. So because we've just by coincidence got we've got Capricorn on the ascendant, just as it's happening here in Brussels. By the way, Brussels being the headquarters of NATO and the European Union, and a bunch of very important political international institutions. This is significant in the sense that we can see that a Capricorn rising shows us that there is definitely something that is going to be affecting the institutions here. I don't want to go into all of these things because it's a mundane astrology that requires a completely different focus, and I want to focus on your individual lives. But just to keep that in mind, that this, whatever impact this is going to have, is going to also change and challenge the institutions in a very, very big way. Not that they weren't already, but because we've got Pluto there in the ascendant in Capricorn. If this is your case, if you are an ascendant Capricorn, then this is definitely also impacting you in a significant way, because there's something that is changing in your personal life. Capricorn ascendant is also in an earth trine with what is happening. So this also shows that there's something that needs to change in a way that is already recognized by you, that's something that's been itching for a little while, something that you've been wanting to do for quite some time. And that restlessness that is there, by the way, this also applies to Virgo risings, this restlessness that is there, is something that has been brewing for many, many years already. And that's with regards to who you are. How you're changing is quite dramatic in these years, especially since Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, May of 2018. More specifically for Capricorn rising, this is happening in your fifth house. And so that can have something to do with your children, if you have any. And if you don't have children, then you can consider projects like things that you're doing creatively or as an entrepreneur to be part of this change. And the fifth house is very much the house of entrepreneurship, engaging in your own creative endeavors. It's also the house of students and learning. So if you're young enough or young at heart and you're learning or you're deciding to go back to school, this can also be that you decide in this moment, I'm changing my subject or I'm going to go back and learn something in a new and different way. Venus is very supportive for you through this because Venus is in the seventh house of relationship and partnership. And so whatever this is, you're getting a kind of a lift from your partner or from business partners or from people around you that may be counselors or therapists or people in your life that are lending support to this change. And so I would say that Capricorn is actually one of the signs that is having this transformation come in a slightly more graceful format. And again, if you have personal planets or your placements around that 17, 18, 19 degree point, or even you can broaden that a little bit if it is especially the sun or the moon or ascendant, you might even extend that to 16 to 20 degrees. Nonetheless, this is something that will be affecting you in a very personal way, and we'd have to have a look at that. And I think I will look at that in a separate video where we look at Uranus through the houses and through the signs so that you can also see, how this is actually affecting you in terms of your Uranus generation, because this is, of course, going to be very different according to where you have your natal Uranus. The energy of Capricorn ascendant as well is also being affected through Jupiter in the fourth house. So this big change is also very likely to do with something to stimulate something around home that is changing. Maybe you have new ideas around what that's going to look like. And by extension, when we have Jupiter in the fourth house, there's a lot of activity in the 10th house of career. And so it's very likely that there's also something here that has something to do with career ambitions, career plans. The fifth house can also be where there's just a sense of joie de vivre and creativity. So where Taurus is the fifth house for Capricorn ascendant, you might also just be experiencing a new sense of desire to change hobbies, to do something that lights you up. That Capricorns are often, especially a Capricorn rising, are often feeling the heavy weight of responsibility in life. And so when you decide, now I could actually change, I could lighten up, I could just live my life a little more fully, now you're seeing that actually this is something that might bring you more joy in your life. And so that can also be a realization that comes kind of out of the blue. We see also for Capricorn rising that this recent new moon in Leo is happening in the eighth house of marriage and shared resources. And so there can be issues around that. It's also the house of transformation, including death. That is sometimes the case where something changes because a relationship or an actual individual is dying. Of course, that's part of life. That's what happens. So we shouldn't fear that, but it can be one of the meanings. It's more likely, though, that the transformation is on that level of what you share with other people, and needing to have another look at that, needing to see what that might look like. If your spouse is getting a new job, for example, or changing some kind of financial status, that new moon in Leo is showing up and saying, oh yeah, so this is some new thing going on in the life of my spouse. With the Aquarius ascendant, now we really see a lot of activity in the fourth house of home and family. It's going to be very much where a lot of this change is coming around that can lead to an actual move, especially if those degree points are really affecting you between, let's say, 16 to 20 degrees. Don't look at other slower moving planets in the same way as you would look at, for example, your sun or your moon or rising or any other important points in the chart, because the slower moving planets will not have such a triggered response. So here we're really especially focusing on the quicker moving planets in your chart, more what we call the personal planets of the chart, where you'll feel it much more significantly. The impact will be more obvious. It can still, of course, trigger a background change if it's, say, going to be your Saturn or your Jupiter that's affected. The outer planets might also be triggered by long-term transformation, but that's something that happens over a space of many, many months, and it's not going to be as much impacted as what we're going through right now, unless that's the degree point for you. So for you, Aquarius, Sun, or Rising, this is going to be the fourth house of family, home, roots, ancestry. Fourth house is also your emotions and your deeper psychology. And so there can be a real trigger for a change here that also triggers a change in your house of career or status, your social status, that can change. You do have that boost from Venus, and Venus is coming through the everyday part of your chart. That's also through health and illness in the sixth house. That can be where you find that now there's a new solution to whatever might have been bothering you, especially if this is something that's troubling you psychologically, particularly possible because you've got Pluto going through the 12th house for so long. That there may have been some serious kind of reworking of your inner psychology or your sense of a self that may have been plugging away at you for many, many years. And with Venus there, it can help you. It can support that. It can show you people or ways of improving the situation. And so that can trigger a really positive influence, a positive response. At the very least, with Venus in the sixth house, it shows that the solution to whatever is needing to change through this Taurus energy is going to be through your everyday life. It's going to be through the banal, everyday sort of grind, whether it be through work, through the job that you do, or through your daily habits and how you can improve on that. That's where you'll find the solution to this. So take action is really the meaning here. For you, the new moon of the 28th of July happened in your seventh house of relationship. So there's a new stimulus in relationship, something very interesting, and triggering this potential for communication as well, particularly because Mercury was in this place of stimulating Uranus, potentially new revelations, new ideas, new things coming in that are going to be quite significant. It's going to really give you perhaps a new way of looking at relationship, new understanding of relationship, or even a new relationship. And that depends, of course, on other factors in your chart. Jupiter's in your third house, so community, your siblings, and your personal skills, and also eventually potentially some kind of commercial nous, because the third house is also a house of entrepreneurship. It's a house of business and commerce. So Jupiter is there. Perhaps there's a new business idea that is being triggered here, and that is giving you this sense of something new. And I don't remember if I mentioned this, but Jupiter is trining the sun. That was recently at that new moon stage. The sun has moved on from the new moon stage, but Jupiter is trining that around this time of the triple conjunction. And so that's very uplifting, very, very harmonious. And in your case, that connects back to partnership, so business partnership or life partnership. And that's something that you can pay attention to. Now we've got a Pisces ascendant. So Pisces, you don't have to wait till the very end. So Pisces sun or ascendant sign, your rising sign, very significant here because, again, we're having all of this energy in your house of skills, potentially in the surroundings. Your awareness, your knowledge base is going to be utilized here. New ways of communicating with people. This can be new ventures in terms of business or communication or skills that you might need to develop or that you realize are valuable, even if you've already had those skills for ages and you thought, well, that's not really useful. Now you realize, wow, I can really put that to good use. So for Pisces, this is a very strong third house aspect. It could be also energy coming from siblings and cousins that supports you as well, or that there's changes in their lives that you're having to respond to. You're getting a boost from the fifth house, which could be something joyful that comes in through just having fun, through a lovely, harmonious meeting of minds, or a potential new love interest. That can be around children as well, your own children, if you have them, or other people's children. And also the joy of learning. Fifth house, again, being something to where we learn. It's about discovering something in a creative and engaging way. That's the house of students. So you might find that you decide you want to learn new skills, or you realize, oh, these skills are what I need to go forward. Therefore, I'm going to start to learn that. And this new moon for you, Pisces, was happening in the sixth house of everyday work. And so there can be something that you discover is going to be a new way of having to work, a new opportunity at work, in the way that you organize your day to day, in the way that you organize your health potentially, or the way that you organize your daily rhythm, your daily schedule. And that is something that you can see for the next, certainly the next month, but also for the next 6 months, because that will take you through until the full moon in Leo shows you the results of that work in February. Equally, this has a lot to do with money for Pisces. Jupiter in the second house already since May has been showing you where money is important, where you have to pay attention to your money, where investment is important. You may have found expenses have increased, or that there's a need for you to adjust the way that you work with money. For example, it can be an increase in salary, but Jupiter potentially in Aries can be as much coming in as going out. And so you may have an increase in salary or some good fortune in money that is coming through what you do or the assets that you have. But it can also be easy come, easy go. So beware of that. And Jupiter retrograde in these next these next 4 months will show you if you need to change anything with that regard. So yeah, good luck with that, because it looks like that can be really, really helpful process of change. So we have Aries on the ascendant next. And so Aries has had the benefit of having Jupiter in the first house all this time. And now Aries money is being really shaken up, because now that triple conjunction is happening in their house of money. So there can have been already since May some real earnings potential, or something very new and different coming into the lives of Aries, where things are shaking up because you've decided that you yourself are going to step out in a new way, stepping out in a bold and different way, feeling perhaps more comfortable with yourself. This is a once in 12-year transit that goes through the ascendant, and it's very uplifting. It helps you to be seen as well, helps you to kind of stand out in whatever you do. Now, with all of this change in your second house, that can have an impact on your income. That's the money you earn from the thing that you do, from your assets as well, the wealth that you have. That can be fluctuating, and it's probably been fluctuating for you since already May 2018. So there may have been quite a lot of financial ups and downs already. When Jupiter moves into that part of your chart in the second half of 2023, you'll find that that gives you an uplift as well. Much like Pisces is getting now, but it can also mean again that the money comes and goes. So taking care of that is a priority. This second house can also represent how you feel about yourself. Again, it's everything that supports you. So you might be finding that you have a new sense of self-worth or self-esteem. And again, that can come in tandem with this Jupiter in your first house, which gives you usually a good, nice boost in self-esteem, a sense of worthiness. I hope that's the case for you as well. You've also got Venus in the fourth house of psychology and emotion that gives you a little boost temporarily until she leaves in August. And that's supporting this whole thing, this new cycle that you're experiencing here. So take advantage of that and perhaps jump out into new ventures, whether they be private or personal or business ventures. The new moon for you was in the house of love affairs and new love interests, as well as entrepreneurship and potentially children, something new maybe in your children's lives or new in your life regarding children. Maybe you're contemplating having children, or you are going to have another child if there's already some in your life. And so this can have some kind of impact around that. And again, that new moon can also be simply that you have a desire for a new way of expressing yourself creatively. through even just a hobby or something that you find as a kind of a passion project. There's a lot going on for Aries. It's a really intense time. Much of it is happening in the sense of, personal awareness and your personal sense of achievement, your personal sense of self. When we go forward, we see now Taurus is on the ascendant. And so, of course, Taurus, this is big, big, big change for you personally, because pretty much when something is happening on the ascendant, everything is changing around you. So that impacts your home, your family, your work environment, your partnerships. So if you've got Taurus on the ascendant, hang on, buckle up. And again, it's not new. This has been a transformation that you've been undergoing since May of 2018. So this has been on the horizon. It's something of an itch that has needed scratching for this length of time. Maybe you've already scratched the itch, and this is about tweaking something in a new way. Or it's something that unexpected comes up, or maybe just now you're getting to see the impact of what needs to be changed in your life, and having that big impact of this triple conjunction is going to light you up, change you dramatically. So it's very difficult to say how this will turn. Again, it depends on your personal chart, but it can easily be said that you will be extremely changed and personally transformed by this passage. And that continues for a very, very long time. So again, this is the ignition phase. The job will not be done next week. So don't worry if you haven't got this figured out. Believe me, none of us have. So just go forward bit by bit, and keep stepping kind of with faith. Keep your faith that as you're changing, as you're moving forward into the change, things are going to shift for you. Jupiter has been in your 12th house of spirituality, foreign lands. Perhaps there's been a lot going on with you with regards to foreigners or long distance places. That is also the house of bed pleasures. So that can also be where you may have had a sense since May that that life is just taking on a whole new gloss, especially if this regards your personal relationships, that maybe things are really taking off in a beautiful new way for you in that way. Jupiter behind the scenes can also be something that offers you an opportunity to research something or study something with great success, and that thing will come out. It'll emerge in the second half of 2023 for you. And then you have this, of course, the alternative is that it's the house of self-undoing. So it can be that for some Tauruses that you've been letting things slide and you haven't really taken care of things in the way that you should, potentially with Chiron there as well. That may have also been that, because self-sabotage is another element of Chiron, and it's been there also since the spring of 2018. Well, Uranus has been in your first house. So there may have been some need to really wake up and see that some of the problems in your life are self-created. And if that's the case, then Jupiter is going to help you resolve that. And so we can see also that the new moon happened in your house of home and family, literal home. Where do I live? How do I live? So there's maybe some new energy around that, and issues that come up in terms of what it is that you want. And that can be an emotional need, some desire for home to look different or feel different for you. That may be something that is as simple as deciding to get, I don't know, a cleaner to help you around the home, or that you want to renovate in some way, that you decide, now I just want to, improve something here. Jupiter trining the sun there can really light that up. It can bring you real creative ideas around home. And again, that can also be your sense of self and a renewed sense of emotional foundation, a renewed sense of optimism potentially, and psychological regeneration for some Taurus natives, especially the ascendant, but also the sun. And then Venus is helping you through the house of siblings and skills. And so that can be your neighbors as well, people around you. The people around you in your day-to-day life can be a real support right now. Communication is called for. So that requires you asking. Don't wait around and expect people to figure out what it is that you need. That's something that Taurus can do, where they don't take action. I think with this Mars Uranus, you're going to be forced to take action, and then Venus is saying, okay, talk about it. Speak to people about what you need, And Venus in the third house, for some of you, might mean commerce as well. And again, that can be a real opportunity that comes up, a new way of engaging commercially with a new enterprise. So all very interesting stuff. These are interesting days for people with Taurus on the ascendant because you're personally affected so deeply. Then we have Gemini on the ascendant. So Gemini, you're going to get your turn when Mars goes retrograde in your sign. I'll talk about that in another video that's coming up in August as of the 20th. But for now, Mars is in your 12th house, where Uranus has been for, as I said, about 4 and a bit years. And now that is all being triggered, something that has been shifting there behind the scenes, something that has been changing in your life behind the scenes, potentially in a faraway, distant land, or with people from faraway cultures and lands, even if they're potentially sitting next to you, but they come from a long, long way away. That has been something that has been stirring up your life for some time, and now there's something very significant happening there. So for Gemini ascendant, this may not be as noticeable as for some other people, because that is often, again, the hidden aspects of life. Another way of seeing the 12th house, and that applies to Taurus as well, where Jupiter has been, for example, is that that's where we get ourselves in trouble if there are secret dealings, and whether those dealings be through relationships that shouldn't be happening or that somehow are needing to be kept under wraps for whatever reason, or business dealings that are not entirely above board. Be careful, because this energy will highlight that, and something significant can happen and turn things around for you in ways that are unexpected. So everything has to be above board. For all of the Geminis that come to see me lately, I've given this message. Gemini does also, because it's ruled by Mercury, have this reputation of being sometimes duplicitous if there's not an elevated way of looking at life. And so there can be this reputation for being a bit of a trickster anyway. So Gemini, you got to walk the straight and narrow, especially right now. And if you haven't been, then make sure that you know how to clean up whatever might blow up in your life from something going on behind the scenes. And it might also be something that is extremely useful, that you've actually been working behind the scenes, that is for everyone's benefiting, particularly yours, where you've been researching something or working on a project, and now you get the insights, you get the impact from that. And that can be brilliant. And particularly because you've got Venus in the second house, that might mean that you can actually financially benefit from something that you've been cooking up or working on for quite a long time. And now this realization brings you to understand, okay, I can do something with this. I can actually use this to benefit others and potentially you financially as well. Jupiter in the 11th house is very, very lucky. It brings you people into your life and ideas and opportunities that come to you through networking and through other people. So this is great. Jupiter is there giving you a real support, giving you real loving potential in your life. And so that is something that you can rely on, the people in your life at the moment. So definitely use that for strategizing. And then this recent new moon happened in your house of business. It's the house of where you see opportunities coming up through communications, internet, business dealings with other people, mercantile types of exchanges. Also learning. It's a place of sort of mundane learning. So skills and your courage are being called on in new ways in this month ahead, and then you'll see the results of that in February. So really interesting time for Geminis as well. Not that it's not for all of us, but here we go. And then we've got Cancer. So again, ignore some of the timings are now going off because I'm just moving through so we can shift the ascendant. So it's giving me a reminder. So it's more for me to see this. The chart is not going to be exact to the triple conjunction any longer, but I just want to pull up these rising signs because it's significant for the energy there. And so for Cancer, you've got the benefit during this triple conjunction, which remember is ruled by Venus. You've got the benefit of Venus being in your first house. So already you have this feeling of friendliness towards others and others being helpful towards you. So for Cancer, Sun and Rising, this is particularly strong. You'll notice that. Sun also represents career. So it represents you, of course, and your outlook on life, but it's also the career. So this can also lead you to have some success in career. And that is especially true because you've got this new moon that's happening in your second house on the 28th of July. And that can be new ways of making money, new ideas around values, around money, how you value yourself and your work and what you put out there, and even potentially what you already own. Your self-worth is improving in that regard, which is great because you've had Saturn in your 8th house of other people's money, which means that money has slowed down a lot since December 2020 for Cancers. You haven't been able to rely on money coming in from other sources in that way. And so this can also appease that a little bit. The triple conjunction is happening in your house of future plans and your goals and wishes and dreams, and those might transform radically. It's also the house of networks and friendships. So it's not your close friends, but how you connect with people, including in groups that share similar plans and hopes for the future. That can be political groups or NGOs of some kind, or just social groups. So big changes there. That can change your desire to participate. It can change your role within the group. It can change your group's the affiliation. So you might find all of a sudden there's a new bunch of people that you can connect with that bring you a lot of really interesting advantages. And so that's definitely something to pay attention to. So waking up to the possibilities there is going to be really interesting for Cancers. This is also going to be supported by, especially around the time of the new moon, which will show you career support is also there for you. You've got Jupiter in your 10th house of career in Aries. And even if it's going retrograde, it gives you an opportunity to still use that energy to expand your career, but in a way that you're revising. So you're going to be looking back on things that may have changed up until this point and then strategizing in a different way. Coming back on sort of February, you'll see the results of what changed now and how you want to go forward with all of that in the spring. Going forward into Leo. So obviously Leo, you had the new moon in your first house. New moon in the first house always is a new personal cycle. So it's not just a new monthly cycle, but it's an annual cycle. So for Leo, you may have had your sun directly impacted by this moon if it was around sort of 4, 5, 6 degrees of Leo, and nonetheless, it's still in the first house, and therefore that's you. That's kind of getting a fresh new boost, and that's quite nice. It's a nice way of seeing yourself, and then that will give you a freshness also in the area of your career, because this is where the triple conjunction is coming in. And that triple conjunction has been transforming for the last couple of weeks what it is that you think you need to do around career. With the North Node there and Uranus there already very intensely, this has been something that's been on your radar for quite a while. This is not new. So just now, maybe you're having opportunities really show up in your life, and now you can seize those opportunities and change. This can also be social status. So it can be around marriage. Around your marital status, so going from married to divorced, going from single to married, etc., going from being a childless person to having a child. That's another way that this can look for you. So all those things are opening up new horizons for Leo rising. And then your Jupiter transiting your 9th house has been showing you new ways of looking at life in general. So a big new picture philosophically, a really interesting time for Leos. And so, yeah, definitely a busy period of time, very personally impactful for Leos, and I think very uplifting. Venus is helping you behind the scenes. And soon enough, I think it's as of the 5th of August, Venus will actually be in your first house. So that gives you a lovely new boost as well. Now we've got Virgo on the ascendant, and Virgo is going to be experiencing this energy in I think, a very positive way. It's in the ninth house of higher education, higher philosophy, new possibilities with international people or international businesses or institutions, a sense of possibility leading to a change of plans. For example, the ninth house is also our long-term plans. What is it that we want to achieve in life, our goals? It's also the house of dharma, so it's having a sense of purpose. Dharma being the sense of what is my duty in this life? What is it that I should be doing? And that is being triggered and challenged and shaken up. And so whatever you might have thought it might be, it can be completely different. And this is quite exciting. Virgos are getting a lot of help from Jupiter, which is in the eighth house of other people's money. So you're getting money from some other source aside from what you're earning. Or it could be if you work with clients, if you do client work, it can be money that you earn from clients as well that's really supporting you. Otherwise, it can be money that comes from a spouse or your parents or the government or some other payout that can really support you through this moment. And also the placement of Venus in your house of friendship and connections with people. Venus is also future planning, and in the 11th house is about what do you want to do, and there's some kind of support for future goals coming from other people. The 11th house is also a money house, and so there can be new sources of income, money coming at you for various reasons. I think a really nice energy for Virgos, a really nice feeling for Virgos at this time of massive change. Virgos can really seize on that in a very positive way. The Leo new moon is happening in the 12th house. And so again, that can be something that is coming more in the hidden aspects, a new sense of personal priorities coming from how you live, how you experience your life sort of behind the scenes. That can also be issues that have bothered you around your health. So 12 houses can also be about health, mental health especially, or confinement because of health issues. And that can be that there's a fresh new start there. So if you've had health issues up until now, it's like, okay, now I see this some new opportunity coming on the horizon, and that's really quite positive. So I see this as really nice for Virgos. And then we see Libra on the ascendant, and Libra is having something quite radically changing in the house of shared resources, other people's money. The house is also representing deep transformation. This is psychological transformation or material transformation. Again, it can be about birth and death. So something quite dramatic can be happening, and that could be happening in the life of your spouse as well, because it's the house of marriage. It may not be directly happening for a Libra rising, but it might be happening in your partner's life if you're married, or if it's a business partner, that can be happening in their experience or within the business partnership. Something needs to change there. But nonetheless, you have Jupiter in the house of relationships, so there's also potentially a lot of support there. That can also mean that there's a lot of energy there that's not necessarily always positive. And again, it depends on your personal chart. I don't want to label something positive or negative. It's just going to be change, and you're going to have to grapple with it through relationship. It looks like your career is also helping in some way, or at least your social status is going to be benefiting potentially in some way, because Venus is there at this time. So that can be very uplifting. So I'm not, again, suggesting this has to be something difficult or negative. It's going to be big change. It could be that something new comes in terms of resources, and you realize that now something needs to expand in career, or there's a new career opportunity, and that's going to change in terms of your relationship. What you share with your partner is going to change because of how your career is changing. For example, with Venus in the 10th house also, that can be a change of status. Perhaps you're meeting somebody that could be quite nice. This is another way that can look. So you've got both benefics in a relationship house. You've got Jupiter in the house of 7th house of partnership, and you've got Venus in the 10th house of social status. So the relationship planet there, which is your ruler as well. For Libras. And so, yeah, it looks pretty nice, actually. That could be very interesting around relationship. If that's the case, get out the door, go out and do stuff, make yourself known, and don't be shy. And so what happens in the new moon around the 28th of July is in your 11th house of new plans for the future, hopes and dreams. Perhaps they're changing, maybe a shift in perspective, shift in plan, possibly due to maybe new events around work or money or relationships. And also that can be some new relationships brewing within social networks and groups of people, new connections being formed. It's very positive. The 11th house is super positive, so having a new moon there is really quite nice and uplifting. So I hope you get the benefits out of that for the Libras. Now we've got Scorpio on the ascendant. So Scorpio, you're having this massive triple conjunction impacting you, as it has been anyway, because of the nodal movements since January, impacting you quite strongly, especially in your house of relationships. So whatever's going on there can be something to do with business relationships, partnerships. It can be marriage partners, very important friends, really significant people, not your children, not people they're people who are your peers. Something changing very significantly there. That can be a change in the relationship itself, or it can be a change in the person, which produces a relationship change for you by extension. And anyway, you've got that South Node going through your first house, meaning that you are personally changing quite a lot anyway. So perhaps you're changing in such a way that you're demanding new things of the relationship. And of course, that's something that you'll feel impactfully for a long, long time to come, not just this period of time, but something might be revealed to you, come into your awareness around how you are in relationships or how other people manifest themselves in your relationships. And now you're like, that needs to change. That has got to change. So again, especially for your sun and your rising sign in Scorpio. You have the sun in the new moon, rather, in the house of career. So that new moon on the 28th of June was happening in your 10th house of career. And so something quite new and eventful can be triggered there. And that can bring you some new opportunities, not only, again, just for this month ahead, but also something that might show up over the longer term, that you'll see the results of whatever's changing right now in these next few days coming in February in a way that is much more tangible. You've got Jupiter in the house of day-to-day work as well, so that emphasizes that impact of work and career. Jupiter is trining the Sun around this time of the triple conjunction, 1st and 2nd of August. Jupiter will be trining that energy also on the 31st of July. And so that's really showing up again around your work schedule, your day-to-day schedule, your habits as well. This also implies health habits need some attention. So if you're a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, and you've got some health issues, then with Jupiter there, you know what to do about it. You've got good advice. You've got somebody around you that has said, do this, do that, and you can make a positive change. Jupiter is potentially highlighting that and expanding potentially health issues, especially related to inflammation and lifestyle choices that may not be working for you, but it will also bring you benefit. It can help you. You've had Chiron moving through that house of health since 2018, since April of 2018. And so health issues may have been bothering you since then, or brewing kind of there under the surface, and they might be triggered these days. Take care of it. If that's the case, don't mess around, and take it seriously so you can deal with it in a constructive way, because Jupiter will help you to do that. You've got Venus in your house of long distance travel, higher learning, international connections, and foreigners, for example, people from far away that you might be relating to or learning from. That's a lovely transit to have, especially if you're on holidays right now. This could be a really lovely time to have a holiday. And so for Sagittarius rising, this is actually going to affect your day-to-day work. It can help, it can shake up something that's going on in your house of health. It can shake up something that's going on in your life in terms of your day-to-day habits and what needs to be changing there. It'll show you where things are needing change. You will have already had inklings of this for months and if not years already. It's not something new for you, but take it seriously, because this is going to highlight something of a need for structural change, or that perhaps around your work, there's a big structural change that's coming in. And that can be welcome or not, depends on where you are on the spectrum of your job and your day-to-day life. Definitely take care of any health issues as well, with Mars and Uranus and the North Node all together in your house of health. That can signal something that comes up out of the blue that you weren't really paying attention to. Symptoms may have been there, but you weren't paying attention. Now it needs your attention. So give it your full attention. Definitely don't waste any time there if there's any health issue there. And so in your fifth house, you've got Jupiter. That's wonderful. It's a lovely, Jupiter is your ruler. And wherever Jupiter goes, you want to pay attention to that, because it shows you something about where your attention is very strong. And so Jupiter's in the fifth house, a real joyful place for Jupiter to be in. And so Jupiter is giving you a lot of support through your own creativity, potentially through your children, through love affairs, through new love, through a sense of new positive developments in relationship, potentially. You have had Chiron there, however, so there can have been some adjustment or need for you to heal from old patterns, emotional patterns, or childhood wounding, or ways that you might be sabotaging yourself in the areas of children, or your creativity, or love affairs, and how you connect with people. With Jupiter there, you may want to buy a lottery ticket as well. It's the house of gambling as well, and just having fun. And why not? There's, it's as good a chance as any that something might come out of it. Lord only knows what's going to be going on in the next months and years ahead. So Venus is in your eighth house of shared resources at this time. So it looks like there's some benefit there, that there's some helpful assistance from the people in your lives that you share money or resources with. That can be business partners, or it can be family, or it can be institutions that give you money, insurance payouts, government payouts, and so on. It could be your spouse is doing really well, and your spouse is bringing in more income. And that's bringing benefit to you indirectly. And so the new moon that happened on the 28th of July happened in your ninth house. So a new way of seeing life, having a new perspective on life, a new opportunity to see things from a different perspective, a new lens that can bring you to a place of real, a sense of new purpose, a renewed purpose in your life. And this is also potentially what this whole energy of the triple conjunction is saying in your day-to-day life. It's like, change it up, make this different now. We have a new plan. You'll certainly see some results from that brewing in the sort of around the time of February next year. But you'll, of course, already see some indication of that at the full moon on the 11th of August. So there we are. So everybody, thanks for bearing with me all the way through this. I hope it was useful for you. It was quite long, so I'm hoping you will manage. For those of you who are able to stick through to the end, thanks a lot for being here. And I'll be back with some information about Uranus through the signs, so that you can also understand more about how Uranus is impacting your life. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye.